Happy Chinese New Year, my friends! Forget that Chinese takeout noodles you're about to get. How about some Chinese takeout noodles instead? Welcome back to Create with Chidex. I'm Chidima, and in today's video I'll be showing you how I made a Chinese takeout noodles cake. I made this cake based on a special request by a special person at Recipe Easy, who has given me so much support almost from the onset of my Insta and YouTube cake journey. You can check them out on Instagram. I've placed their Instagram handle on the screen. They make really yummy looking dishes that I'm sure you're gonna want to see. Trust me. Anyway, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified when I post new content. Join me and let's get right to making this cake. To start making this cake, I downloaded some templates from the internet and used them to cut out the different parts of a Chinese takeout box from edible wafer paper. If you do a Google search, you should see free templates that you could download. So you download the one that you like and then use it as your template. Or alternatively, you can buy an actual takeout box, cut the different parts, and then use those as your templates. In total, I cut 2 edible wafer pieces each for each part of the box, and there were 5 parts, which included the bottom piece, the front and the back pieces, and the side pieces, one of which had a tab for closing the box, and the other a slot where the closing tab will be inserted in order to close the box. When my wafer paper pieces were all cut out, I conditioned and glued the 2 pieces of each part together. There are sprays available for conditioning wafer paper to keep them flexible and reduce the risk of tearing, but I made and slightly painted on a conditioning mixture which I made myself using the recipe on your screen. To make the conditioner, I first of all bloomed the gelatin in water. Then I melted it in the microwave at 10 to 15 seconds pause, making sure that it didn't boil. After it had completely melted, I added and mixed in the glycerin as well. Then I painted on this mixture on my wafer paper. As you can see from your screen, I painted one side of each of the 2 pieces, stuck them together to glue them and make them one piece. Then I painted my conditioner on the outer surface of this one piece. After painting the conditioner onto the front and the back surfaces, I set the piece aside to dry. The wafer paper only took a few minutes to dry, and when it was dry, I used my ruler to help me to fold in the tabs at the edges. I followed the same steps to glue and condition the other parts of the box. So I'm currently conditioning the front piece of the box. I'm only going to show the conditioning and gluing process of this front part because the front and the back pieces are similar. When the front piece and the back piece were dry, I folded in their side and top tabs. But like I said, I'm only showing the process of one of them because they are both similar. The last piece of the box that I glued and conditioned was the side piece with the slot. And when the two side pieces were dry, I bent in the lid tabs at the top of both of them. Now it's time to carve my cake. So I'm using a template to carve out a 5.1 inch square from the cake. Since the measurements of the side, the front and the back of my box templates were all the same, to determine this 5.1 inch figure that I used to make my template, I measured the size of the top part of one of them and cut out a square paper template that was 1/4 of an inch less than the figure I got on all sides. I stacked up the remaining pieces of the cake that I cut out on top of the 5.1 inch square cake to make up a height that was shorter than the height of my edible wafer paper box pieces. I made it shorter to allow enough room for my noodles. After stacking the cakes, I cut them down to the same size as the bottom square piece of cake. The next thing I did was to fill the cake with buttercream and also level the top and all the sides of the cake. To carve the cake into the shape of a takeout box, I placed a 3 inch square template on top of the cake and then carved around it to form an A-line shape. I made this 3 inches template similar to how I made the previous 5.1 inches square template. First by measuring the bottom part of my box pieces and then cutting a square piece of paper that was 1/4 of an inch less on all sides than the figure I measured for the bottom part of my box piece. When I finished carving the cake, I covered it up with buttercream. Now I'm going to cover the cake with modeling chocolate. So first, I'll be rolling it out. Then I'll cut out panels for all the sides of the cake. Here I'm using one of my edible wafer paper box piece to get a rough idea of the size to cut my side panels. I'm also going to cut out a small piece for the bottom part of the cake. I'll be attaching these panels and then cutting them down to size on the cake. Now all the sides of my cake are covered and I won't bother smoothing the seams because I'll still be covering the cake up with edible wafer paper, so you're not gonna see them when I'm done. It's time to sort out the logo for my box. So since we are also in the season of love, for my logo I decided to print and cut out the words Happy Valentine's Day in Mandarin. I just hope I got the words correctly and I'm not unknowingly insulting myself. I'll have Google to blame for that. As part of the design for my box, I also printed and cut out a picture of a pagoda as well. Now I'm going to place these templates on the front piece and the back piece of my edible paper box pieces to first paint on the outline of the shapes with red gel color and a bit of vodka. After that, I'll take off the templates, then go over them again, completing the drawings without the templates. I also had extra pictures of these logos by my side to use them as reference while painting. I also painted on 3 heart shapes. Next, I attached the wafer paper box pieces, starting with the bottom piece, and then flipping the cake over, I attached the sides, front and the back pieces. I started out using corn syrup to stick them on, but noticed it wasn't sticking on properly, so I instead used the same mixture that I used to condition my wafer paper to glue them on. After attaching the bottom piece of my box, I attached the sides. And then finally the front and the back pieces.
Circled in an arrow heart. Somehow you made me feel whole. I wouldn't have to be alone. No, I would never be alone.
I covered the cake in cling film overnight to help the pieces stick together properly. Then the next morning, I made the handle by bending a sugar craft wire and covering it in grey modeling chocolate. After molding it, I put it in the fridge to harden so that I could paint it. Before covering the sugar craft wire, I painted corn syrup on the grey modeling chocolate, then covered the wire and trimmed the chocolate around it.
Tell me how and I'll do it, babe. Cause I just wanna make you feel what I do about you. So just tell me how and I'll do it, babe. I love it when you whisper in my ear, words only meant for me to hear. Promise that your secret's safe with me.
After trimming it, I also smoothened it around the wire. Next, I marbled some brown modeling chocolate with a little black modeling chocolate. Then I inserted 2 sugar craft wires into the marbled chocolate, cut it and rolled it. Then carved out the chopsticks, making the tips sort of pointy. To make my carrot slices, I piped out some orange modeling chocolate through a pasta extruder. And then for the chicken pieces, I placed some cream colored modeling chocolate into the fridge for 10 minutes. And when it was hard enough, I brought it out and sliced it into bite-sized pieces. Now it's time to fill up my box with the noodles. Excited. I applied some brown colored corn syrup to my cake. And then for the noodles, I piped some creamish brown modeling chocolate into the box. And then while piping, I was also coating the chicken and the carrot pieces with corn syrup and putting them randomly inside the box.
Time, but no money.
When the noodles, carrots and chicken pieces had all gone into the box, I painted my box handle with edible silver metallic paint, allowed the paint to dry completely, then I pierced holes by the sides of the cake and inserted the handles in. I colored some of my wafer paper conditioner green, and using it I painted the front and back of a small piece of leftover wafer paper. Then using my ruler I scored lines on it, rolled it into a tube shape, then cut it with a scissors to form spring onion pieces. After that I left it to dry for a few minutes. While the wafer paper spring onion pieces were drying, I warmed up some clear corn syrup in the microwave to make it more watery. Then I coated the noodles, chicken and carrot pieces with this corn syrup. And finally, I added the spring onion pieces and coated them with the same clear corn syrup to complete the cake. And there you have it, a Chinese takeout noodles cake. Doesn't it just look so real? Now it's time to cut the noodles cake.
Acting like there's no tomorrow. Acting like there's no tomorrow. Acting like this. Acting like this.
I've now come to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.